YouTube real quick. Let us your channel. I'm a closed league.
Yeah, do that.
It can't be now. There we go. Let's delete that one. Yeah. All right, cool. Ba-da-ba-da-ba. I know that was that's gonna happen. All right. All right. Let me see. No tienes que bajarlo.
I already did.
I can hear it. I can hear it on my mic.
Is it this?
Say it again.
Is it this?
Oh, it's not this one. I'm sorry. What?
Was it the fans? It's like spinning. Is that...
No. I can hear the PlayStation. You know the sound it makes. Yeah. Wow. What? All right. Okay. This reaction video should kick off shortly. We're waiting on that to load up. What's going on, everybody who's looking in? Hope you guys are having a good day. Let's see what's going to be interesting about the Giants in this press conference. We're expecting a whole lot of nothing, like always. The Giants have a lot of words to say, and nothing really meaningful comes out of their press conferences. But we will see. Hopefully, we could get something and we could dissect. We could get something juicy. I bet they're gonna. I mean, they are hopefully gonna talk about Leonard Williams and what are they doing with him. So hopefully, we'll get something on that aspect at least. Video's still not up. Oh, there we go. It's, We're gonna put this in full screen, and we'll just wait till things happen. Come on, Giants. It's 12:15. Just gonna refresh this page just in case. Just in case. All right, nothing so far. We'll give it some time. Let's wait for them. They're getting everybody ready. They're like, yo, okay, we said 12:15, but we're really starting at 12:20. That's a weird time, 12:15. Why 12:15? Why not like 12 o'clock?
That's kind of normal.
Yeah. How is that kind of normal?
12, 15, 30.
Yeah, but why 12:15? That's my question.
They probably have a 15-minute press conference.
No, they're not having a 15-minute press conference. But it's probably gonna feel 15 minutes. We're not gonna get anything out of it. That we're gonna be like, what's going on? What was said that was valuable? Yeah, let's refresh this one more time. Nothing yet. Nothing yet. Oh, just got a notification on my phone saying that they're live, I guess. No, nothing yet. I'm excited, man. I'm excited to see if anything meaningful is going to come out of this. But my biggest disappointment is going to come from the media. I bet you the media is just not going to ask the right questions. They're going to be like, how do you feel about free agency now that the cap is lowered? Like, man, come on. Like, is that really what you think the fans want to know? Like, come on. Ask real questions. So that's kind of frustrating. I think, to be honest, I think the better press conference is going to be the one tomorrow with the national media. The national media doesn't care whose feelings they hurt. They just want to get down to the bottom of everything. So the local beat reporters, obviously, they have to care about not hurting feelings and not messing up relationships. And that's understandable. I don't blame them for keeping their pockets, not hurting the hand that feeds them. But national media, man, there be some reporters that just be coming in here and coming at the Giants' neck, man. And I respect that. That's why I kind of respect hearing more national media on our stuff than the local beat reporters that they could swear they know it all. There we go. We're in here. Let's go.
Tab at the bottom of your screen to use the raise hand option if you have a question, and I'll unmute the line when it's your turn to go. They're all in, Coach.
All right, good deal. Guys, good to see everybody. It's been a while. Hope everyone's gotten a little bit of rest time. And again, I hope everyone's families are safe and well right now. Look, just to recap and kind of bring you up to speed on what we've been doing since the end of the season. Immediately after the season, we took the next week. We did all of our self-scout evaluations on our personnel on the team. We looked through our roster, and each position coach rates up all their players, the coordinators, kind of establish the needs going forward. I meet with the coaches and the coordinators before we break on a vacation. And then we break on a vacation. We came back several weeks later, and after guys kind of caught their breath a little bit, we recapped our roster. We did as an entire organization with our personnel departments, management, and the coaches. We made sure everyone was on the same page in terms of how we played this year, what we have to do to improve the team, what needs we may need to address, all right, personnel-wise. And then we shifted our gear coaching-wise into scheme. And we did a self-scout solely based on scheme of what we've done last year that was successful and what we have to do better. That shifts into not only what we do, but then also studying the league, studying some college, and seeing what's productive out there that we could apply it into our systems and use to give our players a better advantage. From there, we've carried over. Our coach has been working his last couple of weeks on league studies and presenting to each other right now in terms of finding better ways to incorporate into our own playbook and expand our offense, defense, and kicking game schemes that we can help going forward. All the while, we've been doing free agent evaluations, and our coaches are currently working on the draft. And along with the personnel department, we've been trying to replicate as best we can the interviews we have at the combine with prospects through Zoom. We've been doing that over a week now with several players a day. It's been very productive. I think the difference this year is we're all used to using Zoom, so it doesn't take as long to get on the same page. In addition, to update you on some staff moves we've made since the end of the season. We've added several coaches to our staff. Rob Sales joined us as our offensive line coach. I've known Rob for some time now. I've worked with him. I've stayed in very close contact with Rob over the years. He's someone that's always impressed me as a very thorough teacher, as a very detailed and energetic on-the-field coach. And he's someone who has very strong relationships with his players. I thought he was a good fit. We made sure we did our due diligence. I talked to probably over 25 coaches personally. Our staff researched an additional, probably call it 15 to 20. We had several interviews in person and countless interviews over Zoom. I would say that, they all did a good job. There are a lot of qualified candidates. At the end of the day, the best move for the New York Giants was adding Rob. I'm excited to have him to our staff. In addition to that, Jeremy Pruitt, we've added him as our senior defensive assistant. Jeremy's going to work with all levels of the defense, the back end, the linebackers in the front. Jeremy's another guy that I've worked with in the past. I've kept in very close contact. Jeremy's a guy who's coached on all levels, high school, college, and now in the NFL. And he's always impressed me as someone who's been able to connect to every player on the field, regardless of, how they came up, where they're from, geographically, doesn't matter. Jeremy just has a good knack of connecting with everyone. He's one of the best teachers I've ever been around. And it's been fun having him in the building and talking ball. I think he's going to help our staff as far as bringing some new ideas and different ways of running our current schemes. One thing you're seeing in the league right now, there are a lot of college schemes that are trickling up to the NFL based on the players and their skill sets and what they're accustomed to doing. And, having guys like Jeremy and Kevin Shear and Spence give you a little bit of avenue of looking into ways they've handled similar things in the college game and be able to do it within our own schemes. So that's something that should help us right there. We've added Pat Flaherty. He's going to work in a consultant role with both the offense and defensive staffs. He's going to have responsibilities on both ends. Obviously, Pat's specialty, being an offensive line coach in this league for a long time and tight ends coach, is really dealing specifically with the front. I'm excited to have Pat here. Part of the strength is we have two young offensive coaches. We're offensive line coach with Rob Sale and Ben Wilkerson. Pat's a good sounding board for those guys to have. He's also someone who can do some extra legwork for us and really break down opponents of what they're doing, as well as share with our defensive staff, maybe how some different offenses are running and giving Pat a different perspective, Pat Grand, that is a different perspective on what he's seeing on tape. Offensively, we've had some different assignment changes. And again, Derek Dooley did a great job for us last year as a senior offensive assistant. Really did a nice job as far as preparing for opponents, running our scout teams and breaking down what we're doing. I thought he was a guy that when he wanted to get into a room and get him some guys, we've moved him to tight ends coach at this point. Derek's a guy who's got coordinating experience. He's coached multiple positions, been a head coach. He sees things through a big lens and really sees a big picture at the end of the tunnel, which is important for us. So he'll be our tight ends coach. Freddie Kitchens is going to be our senior offensive assistant. His primary responsibility is to be working with the front. Freddie's the guy who's coached quarterbacks, running backs, tight ends, and has worked, hand in hand with the offensive line. Again, tying into having two young offensive line coaches with Rob and Ben. I think Freddie's going to be an asset up front, working directly with them and helping bring together with game planning, like all of our coaches will, but working directly with Jason. And some of the things are going to happen up front. All that being said, I'll open up to any questions you may have that I can answer at this point.
Bruce Beck, NBC.
Hey, Joe, hope you're doing well. Year one was about the process and about progress. It was about improvement and development. What is the overall mantra as you get set and look ahead to year two?
Yeah, that doesn't really change, Bruce. It's still about being committed to the process. I mean, that's really the biggest thing right there. And like 31 other teams, we have to start over this year. So in terms of the commitment to the team, the development of depth on the roster, the continued development of our players that are here, the identification of the right fits of players through free agency and the draft to add to our program. The theme remains the same. The process is to build the team internally, all right, and then add necessary pieces that can add to your team. So the mantra for us is come to work every day, do your job, work hard, be attentive, and put the team first. That's going to be the job for every player walking through the door, and that's going to be a job for every coach in this building as well.
Tom Canavan, AP.
First question.
Hey,
and we
Joe,
get nothing.
as all these colleges are having these pro days and there's no combine, how are you handling this? Are you sending people to every site? Is everything being done virtually? Are the guys who are traveling being given kits to stay healthy so they can test themselves?
This
So
is
in
the
terms
kind
of
of
the
questions
traveling
that I
from site to
hate.
site, I'll let Dave talk about the personnel department, how they're handling that. We will look to put, scouts in the right positions to watch these pro days. I would say that the thing to consider with the pro days going on around the country is the protocols are a little bit different, or say the regulations are a little bit different, state by state and school by school. The one thing that we've been told that hasn't changed yet is our interaction with players at these pro days will be almost non-existent. And in terms of what school you're at, you may be in the stands in a stadium, watch a player operate on the field. Now, we're going to get videotape of all these pro days. So very similar to the combine, all 32 teams are going to get the same tape of all the players. Really, your best view will be the up-close views of the tape that you're getting. Now, ideally, leading in the draft, you want to get out there. You want to meet in person with these players. You want to look them in the eye. You want to get on the field with them. You want to put them through drills. And you want to really get a feel for these guys on the field, how they respond to your coaching. All right, what they can and can't do on the field, and really get a feel for their skill set up close. Videotape is good. There's really no replacing in-person workouts. That being said, because of the travel around the country right now, and then also some of the restrictions at the campus, we're going to be selective at where we send coaches as far as being out to work guys out, because, again, you're more going there as an observer than you are to actually work out the players. It's definitely different than in the past. I'd say it's not too dissimilar than the combine itself, where you would sit in the stands in Indy or in a suite and watch the players work out. But to be honest with you, I'd say 90% of the coaches and personnel that are in the booths or in the suites are looking at the guy on the field, and then they're looking at the screen for the replay on TV to get an up-close view of it. It's not the most ideal view as it is anyway. So, long-winded answer, Tom. Will there be people out there? There will. Is it going to be as much traveling as in the past or as much interaction? No, there won't. However, I'd say we have a lot of confidence in going through the draft last year without pro days at all, dealing solely with, talking to players after the combine on Zoom. And I think we did a good job working as an organization to evaluate them through that process based on their game tape, and to get together and make sure that we agreed how we saw the player and what the best decision for the team going forward was.
Tom Rock, Newsday.
Joe, this offseason seems a little bit different in terms of some of the top quarterbacks in the league and their potential to move around. I'm wondering if your stance has changed at all because of some of the potential availabilities of those players regarding Daniel, and why or why not?
Okay, that's a good
No,
one.
it hasn't at all. It hasn't at all. And again, we have confidence in Daniel. He's a player that we want to work with going forward with this team. He showed us a lot of improvements, a lot of things. I go on and on about how much we respect them and like them, and how their locker room responds to them. But the simple answer to that, Tom, is no.
And what last year was obviously about evaluating him and coming to that decision. What do you need to see from him moving forward, and what can you do in the next couple of weeks here, the next couple of months as we head towards the draft to help him get there?
Well, we're limited on the interaction we can have with the players anyway. All right, we touch base with our players, text and phone calls. A lot of these guys come through the building. We sit down and have conversations, but it's really not football at this point. It's more just catching up, checking on these guys, making sure that they're good, that their families are healthy, if there's anything need from us that we can assist them with, but it's not football at this point. So in terms of anything we can do leading up to the draft, until we get clearance to start the off-season program and have the players here and really not get on the field with the players till phase 2, that's the first time we're really going to get a chance to work with them on the field. Other than that, it'd be, meetings in phase 1 and some meetings in phase 2. And then ideally, if we have OTAs again, that's really where they can make the most gains and improvement as a player. And that's for all of our players. In terms of Daniel, like every other player and every coach, we all have things we have to improve on and take strides forward in this year. So that's no different for any player on our roster, any player in the league, really. But our focus is internally, coaches and players, we all have to improve. We communicate that directly. I do with all the coaches. We communicate directly with all of our players and things that we have to improve on, both short term and then long term throughout the career. And then we put together a system and a plan for them to attack that and go forward with it.
Hi, Leonard, Daily News.
Hey, Joe, this offseason, how do you balance trying to plug some holes on your roster to win in 2021 with, continuing to rebuild the roster and looking at the long-term picture, like when you're evaluating free agent decisions and that kind of thing?
Look, I'm always a long-term picture guy. And I think you have success by continuously building your team through the draft, by developing your players, by adding the right players in free agency who not only fit you schematically, but fit you personality and culture-wise in the locker room. I think the one thing to keep in mind as we go through this free agency point of the year, and look, it's very exciting. There's a lot of press and media, and it's all over TV. The reality is it's not fantasy football. You can't just grab a player, put him on your team, and think everything's going to work out. It has to be the right fit for your team going forward. And that's a fit culturally, and that's a fit schematically. And it's got to go both ways. All right, there's things that we do here that, look, we don't make it easy on our players and coaches. That's by design. And the guys we have in this locker room have bought in. We have a lot of fun here through doing that, but we have a way of doing things. That's not for everyone, to be honest with you. And, you got to make sure you bring someone who's going to fit the culture and that's going to buy into what you're doing and that shares the same principles and values and team goals that you have. So, in terms of balancing that, Pat, to me, it's just about continuously adding good players to your roster. And then it's our job internally to help those players promote their career through developing them and getting better on the field.
And Jordan Rana, ESPN.
Hey, Joe, how you doing?
Hey, Jordan.
You said, you evaluated your own team and, what you kind of need in regards to personnel-wise. So I'm wondering, obviously, you're not going to tell me exactly who you want to get or whatever, but from a big picture, what are your goals personnel-wise this offseason?
Yeah, look, so I'm going to give you an answer, and this is actually as clear and transparent as I can be. And it's going to seem very generic and very washed out, but this is as simple as I can put it. The priority is really just to add as many good players to this team that we see helping us down the stretch and building with this. That's the goal. Add good players, all right, who fit what we're looking to do, who can add to the skill sets we need as a team, and at the same time fit the culture in the locker room that we're building here. So I know it sounds very generic. There's guys at all positions that are available throughout the league. Ultimately, what it's going to come down to is making sure whatever position we bring guys in, that they fit us and that we fit them.
So far, a whole lot of nothing.
Being specific on one position at least, how important is it for you to add a top playmaker in regards to a receiver this offseason?
Yeah, I think we've got to do things to help our players on our roster. We've got to make sure we keep putting these guys in positions to be successful. And part of that is by, adding talent and, compete and improving the competition on the roster. All right. So that could be through the draft. That could be through free agency. That could be a lot of different ways. So in terms of adding specifically a receiver, look, if the right situation's up with a guy in free agency, then we'll pursue it. If the right situation's up with a guy in the draft, then we'll pursue it. My focus as a coach is when we get whoever we have in the building of continuing to put them in the right position to be successful and use their skill sets.
Good
Zach
job,
Rosenblatt, NJ.com.
Hey, Joe. You guys obviously added a lot of young offensive linemen last year, and I know you made it a point to work them into the rotation throughout the year and get them some experience. I'm curious, how much do those guys kind of play into your decision-making in terms of adding offensive linemen this offseason, and how do you feel generally about that group coming out of last year?
Well, I think because you play 5 guys at a time at that position, you're always looking for good offensive linemen to bring into your program and develop. Okay. You can never have too many good offensive linemen. No one's ever upset that they have a really good offensive line. So I'm very pleased with the development our young guys got last year. I'm pleased with, the continuity they built in of not really just being 5 guys working together, but really it was 7 to 8 guys working together through different stretches of the season. All right. And really getting a feel for each other. That being said, again, we're always looking to add good players that can add to our roster. And, every player has to compete for what they get here. So specifically to the offensive line, I'm pleased with the progress those guys made last year. And if there's someone at some point to add to the team, that's going to be the best move for the team. We'll always consider that.
Kim Jones, NFL Network.
Hey, Joe. Good to see you again. Where are you on Dalvin Tomlinson? And how would you evaluate a guy who doesn't have the biggest stats because of the position he plays, but certainly seemed to be really important to what your defense was able to do last year.
Yeah, I mean, look, specific to our players who are free agents, look, I said after the season, I'll say it again, I'd love to have all of our guys back. I really would. I'm not going to comment on, anything specifically to contracts. And obviously we have a lot of, love for Dalvin as a person and as a player. To me, I don't think stats are always the overlying factor. You have to understand how you're using within your scheme and the overall production he has sometimes by allowing other people to be productive. Look, in terms of Dalvin, I can't say enough good things about him. All right, I love him as a person. He's a fun guy to coach. All that being said, we'd love to have all of our guys back. There's a process every team has to go through this time of year through free agency, and all that stuff be addressed when the time comes.
Ryan Dunleavy, New York Post.
Hey, Joe. Have you talked to Nate Solder, and what do you expect him to play this season? Did he give you that indication? And do you need either him or Kevin Zeitler around, if not both, to mentor your young offensive lineman?
Yeah, I'd say both those players are players who are under contract and currently on our roster. Look, I'm not going to speak for Nate. The answer is yes, I have talked to Nate, and to be honest with you, the majority of our conversations have actually had nothing to do with football. I've talked a good bit with Nate since the end of the season and just checked up on him in terms of how the year off went, how his family's doing, how his son's doing, and how he's doing personally. So we've had a lot of conversations. We have talked some football. There's other areas of our building as well that are in conversations with Nate. But when the time comes to address all that, we'll know. Obviously these things don't all happen in one day, and we'll see where everything goes. But these are players that we'd love to have back. They're guys on our roster. So,
Matt Lombardo, fan-sided.
Hey, Joe. This year in particular, with the cap being lower, I'm just curious when you look at two positions like pass rusher and wide receiver, which Jordan asked you about, how you weigh what's happening in the draft. It's obviously a very deep receiver class. So does that kind of shift your way of thinking about that position? And maybe the same goes for pass rusher where it might not be so deep and you might need to dip into free agency?
I mean, it's our job to know everybody who's in the draft as well as everybody throughout the league that's a free agent. It's our job just to know everyone throughout the league on other rosters as well. That's just part of the job of knowing the people in the NFL. Speaking specifically on those positions, look, you're always doing your homework based on what's available in different avenues to add to your team, whether it's free agency or the draft. Sometimes they do way off each other. Other times they may not. I think the decision always comes down to who's available at what times, and is it the best move for the organization.
You could tell Joe Judge came from New England, man.
Justin Waters,
he is the generic answer king.
Hi, Joe. Just following up on wide receivers, I wanted to know when evaluating them, especially because so much isn't in person, what characteristics are you looking for on film or intangibles, besides, obviously, as you mentioned, fitting into the culture?
Yeah, look, for all of our players, we're really looking for smart, tough, and fundamentally sound. Now, you can evaluate a good bit of that on tape. You can evaluate the smart through the instincts you see them play with on the tape. You can evaluate the tough through how they play with a physical mentality and how they respond to the tough situations in the game. And fundamentally sound, you've got to see, on the tape, how they play within their positional execution. All that being said, you're evaluating critical factors, not to what they've done, but what you think they can do projecting going forward. So in terms of evaluating anybody simply on tape, you've got to do your best work in terms of really evaluating how they play. Ultimately, the most important evaluation is the game tape. When you talk about draft prospects, it's important for us to do our homework on these guys, important for us to have good interaction in person and be very intentional in the questions we ask them to make sure that we find out the information we need to.
Patty Trainer, Giants Country.
Hi, Coach. How you doing?
Hey, Patty.
Coach, just to follow up on something you said at the beginning, you went through an off season last year like none other. It looks like it's going to be the same kind of parameters in terms of virtual and whatnot. I'm just wondering, what kind of improvements have you identified that maybe you want to change going forward into this off season to get better results on the results?
Well, I'd say the first thing is in terms of the makeup of this off season, Patty, nothing's been done officially that we've been communicated to about. I'd say our hope is still to have the players in person, whether that's in intense protocols or whatever it may be. Obviously, it's a voluntary program. So, it's on the players of, what they want to do with their off season. I can tell you this, easily over 90% of our players talking at the end of the season, voiced to me their desire to be here this spring and the importance they know on working here. I think we have a young team who understands that, we have to work to improve. But that being said, it's a voluntary program. We're going to do everything we can do to help the players when we're allocated the time. Now, I'd say specifically into the virtual part of it, Patty, actually, we had a long talk about that after the season. When we talked about evaluating everything we do as a process, we had a long talk about the virtual element of the program, whether it was spring or in season. And that's something based on whether or not we have to do it because we're mandated to in the future, whether that's spring of the season. Also, we looked at some of the benefits of using it as a change-up like we did sometimes this year throughout the season. And we saw benefits of doing it at different times, possibly virtually. Now, that's got to be the right makeup of the team, the right time of the year, and the right situation to use it. One thing I thought our staff got very good at, and our players as well, was being very interactive at the end of the year through Zoom. It wasn't so much just tune in and listen, but it was really the interaction that we were able to really simulate those in-person meetings. And the more interactive the meetings got, the more benefit we saw on the back end of the year. I would say that, just seeing what we did last year that was beneficial, Patty, that would be the main focus of carrying into this spring. The other thing too is, we reach out to a lot of people and we try to find out, what do they do differently? And I'm talking about, talk to college programs. What are they doing differently with, a younger generation of players? Talking to high school coaches. How do they have to interact with their players? Talking to teachers in high schools and professors in college. What are things they found beneficial as far as teaching? What other tools are there out there that we're not using that could keep the players stimulated and engaged throughout meetings? So we're always looking to go ahead and do it. To me, the number one thing is interaction now, Patty.
Thank you, Coach.
We'll take three more. Ed, Daryl, Chris.
Somebody in the chat said Joe is sexy.
Hey,
I agree.
Coach. I wanted to follow up on Rob's sale. You guys have obviously put so much thought and effort into offensive line with Freddie's new role, with bringing in Pat Flaherty.
Right.
If you can just expand on why you think Rob Sale is the right guy to help this young offensive line.
That's a good question.
Yeah, listen, like I said earlier, Rob's an excellent teacher. He's a great high-energy coach, very detailed on the field. His guys respond to him. I've watched him develop a number of players at different places, all right, whether he was at Georgia, Arizona State, or Louisiana. I've seen him develop a number of offensive linemen that have been successful. I think the biggest thing is when you look at, some of these programs, they start out with these higher recruits and their ceiling is high, but the room to get to the ceiling is not always as high. What I've seen with Rob is, some of the guys he's developed in the programs he's been in, where he's truly had to mold them and bring them along, both from their physical development as well as their mental understanding and on the field performance. So, look, I'm very pleased with what him and Ben have been doing the last few weeks together, working together. But tying directly into Rob, look, his ability to teach, his ability to establish relationships with his players, and the response he gets from his guys and how they play on the field, that to me, they all just line up to be the best fit for us.
Thank you.
Daryl Slater, NJ.com.
Joe, as you self-scouted your pass rush last year, what did you think of it? And then tying into that, now that Leonard Williams will be back with you guys, how does that impact how you view that area and entering free agency in the draft?
Well, look, it's a passing league. I mean, truly it is. I mean, you have to be able to stop the run to be effective on defense. But when you look at the guys getting paid the most money, it's obviously the quarterbacks. It's a passing league. So when you talk about the pass rush, it can never be just one player. You have to have depth in those positions, and it has to come from multiple areas. So to me, the improvement of the pass rush as the year went on last year was a combination of the improvement made up front with the defensive line, the outside linebackers in our pass rush games, and then also on the back end with the way the defensive backs improved and the coverage on the back end to give them more time to get to the quarterback. Nothing really happens independently of each other. If the coverage isn't sound, you can't have a pass rush. If the pass rush isn't sound, they got to cover for a long time, and all of a sudden that ends up not being really in your favor. So really that's all the improvement of the defense as a whole. And that's what we have to really go ahead and keep emphasizing, is making sure that all three levels, the DBs, the linebackers, and the defensive line, continue to improve within our schemes. And then we have to make sure that we use guys in the best situations and matchups to be successful.
Thank you, Joe.
And in terms of Leonard Williams, him coming back, how does that impact how you view things going into free agency in the draft with your pass rush?
Look, like I said about all of our players,
still need depth there, man.
Back. And, he's a guy that obviously we really value in this building, and we'd love to have him around here. When we talk specifically about how that helps the pass rush, I think good players help you play good.
Exactly.
And it's no secret that he's a very good player.
Last question here, Chris Bisignato, Giant Insider.
Hey, Coach, you talked about going over schemes and making some adjustments. I'm curious, in the tight end position, you and Jason, do you feel that you fully utilize Evan Ingram, and even a guy like Levine Toilolo in the offense, the way you attack defenses. And after looking at every play, I'm sure you looked at every play, Coach, numerous times. How do you feel about Evan Ingram still? Do you feel this guy is the future here?
Great question.
I love Evan. I have a ton of confidence in Evan.
There you
He's
go.
fun to coach. The guys have fun playing with. He gives everyone in the locker room a lot of confidence. This guy goes out there every day. And this guy works tirelessly.
Let's go.
I mean, tirelessly.
I'm a
This
supporter.
guy is a tank every day. So in terms of confidence within the program, absolutely we have confidence in him. 100%. And
The
he's
first
a guy,
question, though, Joe.
You know, that obviously we have to keep continuing to feature in the offense, along with Caden Smith and Levine and all the other tight ends will be in our program, because these are guys with skill sets, and we just got to make sure that we keep on doing things to use their versatility and skill sets to put them in a position of strength.
That kind of gives it away, kind of, sort of.
Thanks, Coach. You're all set.
They didn't use him.
Guys, I appreciate your time. One last thing, just want to say congratulations to Dan. He had a son, Jackson Charles, right, Dan? So congratulations, and you and your wife are still playing man defense, so it's 2-on-2, so you guys are still ahead of the curve there. All right, appreciate you guys.
Thanks, Coach.
That's a nice touch by Joe Judge, showing the human aspect of him. Real quick, let's just go real quick with the last question. He did say that they need to use him to the best of his ability or whatever. So I'm pretty sure he kind of was hinting that they didn't use him as best they could. To be honest, if you look at the routes that Ingram ran last year, I didn't see him run enough seam routes, in my opinion. So I'm sure that's probably going to change. Let's talk a little bit about real quick. What did I get out of this video? Real quick, they made so many different changes in the personnel in terms of the coaching and stuff like that. Maybe move people up, move people down. Rob Sales is a new offensive line coach, and again, we're getting these guys where he's mentioning their teachers. So it's gonna be. Listen, I do feel like this offensive line improved as the season went along. Yes, you could check out PFF and you could see that their grades were terrible and all this and that. And absolutely, no, this the only thing that I can tell you about this conference, and I'm gonna tell you right now, Joe Judge is excellent at just giving you general questions that don't say anything. Like, he was just saying a whole lot of nothing. And again, we knew that was gonna happen. However, when he opened up the press conference and he talked about the different changes that they made in the background, and they brought in, Pat Flaherty to help kind of with the offensive line, and they also have a new offensive line coach, new tight ends coach. Freddie Kitchens is now kind of more involved in the offensive. He moved up. He's now has a new offensive coordinator, not the offensive coordinator. We still know that's Jason Garrett, but he's more involved, I guess, in the offensive game planning of the week. And you could tell that these guys had a lot of discussion, a lot of stuff evaluating. I don't think you really see that from year to year in the past of the Giants. You usually have like, oh yeah, we're coming in with the same coaches, and nothing changed. Nothing was wrong with our coaching staff. It was the players. I think that Joe just kind of told us like, nah, man, we reevaluated, and there's some things there that didn't work out for us too well. So that's kind of good. Other than that, man, there was just a whole lot of nothing. It's true. We didn't get too much out of it. The Daniel Jones being the quarterback, I mean, of course we knew that was going to happen. I think the better question would have been like, is there any competition that you guys are thinking of bringing in? Again, my opinion, we have to bring in competition for Jones. There has to be. It's not just bringing a backup. A backup doesn't do anything. You need somebody that's going to push somebody to get better. And if you're not going to bring somebody in that's going to, a lot of fire on him, then, maybe he won't improve. And again, my biggest take on Jones is he needs to work the pocket. That's my only problem with Jones this whole entire
Good
time.
Good afternoon, folks. Trust you're all well. And
here we go.
And feeling and your families are great also. Just to catch up on where we've been, what we've done since the season ended. Obviously, when the season ended, we had a thorough review of our roster, and then we've got into the UFAs. All right, so we're well on our way there. On the college side, we've had 2 rounds of Zoom meetings with the college scouts. They are out and about on the pro days. Our final prep meetings for the draft will reconvene in early April. Hopefully, some of it in person, and it's not completely Zoom. We're hoping for that. And right now we're involved with Zoom interview sessions in lieu of the Indy interviews. We started those last week. We're doing 3 players a day on average and in the afternoon. So that's where we're at. And finally, just so you understand, I completely understand why you guys have to ask about contracts and negotiations. I understand that. I hope you understand my stance on this. Philosophically, it's between the player and the club. I think it's very personal. And in terms of timelines, contracts get done when they're supposed to get done. So that's the way I feel about it. And, that's the way it's going to go when you ask me questions about negotiations. And let the questions begin.
Paul Schwartz, New York Post.
We didn't get nothing out of that intro.
Hey, Dave, how are you?
Good, and yourself, kid?
Good, thank you. Good. This is not a negotiation question, okay? Not a negotiation question, okay? Yes. Well, no, but last year you had Leonard Williams play under the franchise tag number, right? This year, how debilitating would it be if you have to do that again with Leonard Williams, almost $20 million of cap space?
Well, we still don't know what the cap number is going to be. We still don't know that. So I can't really, that's a hypothetical. Don't know what the number is going to be, but it is what it is.
Okay.
I mean, you don't know the exact number, but it's 180 now. It's not going to be 190. Theoretically, how much would it hurt you in free agency moving forward if you have to allot all that money to one player on a franchise tag?
Well, it's, Paul, obviously, it certainly makes it a little more difficult, but we'll operate and we'll manage.
Art Stapleton, the record.
Hey, Dave.
Hey,
with reference to Leonard and the franchise tag, have you guys officially used the franchise tag on Leonard yet? I know there was a report this morning that you were going to.
Well,
actually happened yet.
Today's the last day. We're gonna have to make it. We'll see where it goes.
So you haven't made an official decision on that either way.
Go ahead.
What was that? What was that?
We'll make a decision later on.
Okay, and just in terms of the way this offseason is shaking out, I mean, I know last year you started one way in terms of how you were able to do all your evaluation. You still had the combine, and then obviously everything changed and you had to kind of really fly by the seat of your pants. I'm just curious, overall, do you feel that it's more challenging, less challenging going into this year, having gone through an offseason like last year? Or are there things that you still are kind of uncertain as to how things are going to play out from a scouting perspective, from free agency, because of the uncertainty that's still involved league-wide?
Well, the uncertainty really doesn't play into unrestricted free agency. All right, those are players that you scout. They're in the league. That scouting them is not an issue. The uncertainty certainly falls on the college draft piece. All right, last year, despite the fact that the world essentially closed down mid-March, we had already had Indy.
Mid-March.
Had the All-Star games.
All-Star.
And obviously you'd had a full college season with full normal access. So you had all that. Okay, this year, obviously it's different. The way the pro days are set up, each team is only going to be allowed to have 3 people attend. And most likely you're going to be in the stands, whether that's in an indoor facility or in a stadium, who knows? It's going to vary from school to school. You also, we also have to have our scouts test and show up with negative tests. So there's a lot of that going on. The other problem that you have is, that critical, face-to-face contact. You're not going to be able to have it because even at these pro days, you're not going to be allowed to have one-on-ones with the players. So it's going to be different. We've got I've had conversations with other leagues, people in other leagues, and how they've handled it, and I'll continue those conversations. But really and truly, there's always unknowns. There's just more unknowns this year. The one thing that I will say is, we're used to the Zoom. We're used to operating differently, and we're used to we're used to trying to be innovative as to how we operate. So that part of it is ongoing.
Bruce Beck, NBC.
Dave, you look sharp. Hope you continue to have good health.
Thank you, Bruce.
Even if Saquon comes back 100%, do you need playmakers? 1, 2 more? How do you look at that?
Bruce, every team needs playmakers.
Come on, Bruce. What kind of question is that, man?
Good Lord willing, Saquon will be 100%, and obviously he'll make a huge difference. The healthy Saquon, obviously makes a big difference. But again, you're always looking to add good players, and oh, by the way, we're not playing until September. All right, so we've got free agency, we've got the draft, and we'll see how it plays out. We're not. It's not like we don't realize where what we need. But again, at the end of the day, it's also about adding really good players. You can never have too many good players at any position. So, sure, we have our eye out for that, but we're also have our eye out for guys that fit us culturally and fit where we're trying to get to.
Here we go, the culture again.
Tom Rock, Newsday.
Hey, Tom.
Hey, Dave. Seems like this year more than ever, there's a lot of potential quarterback moves in the league, and certainly a lot of high-ranking draft picks to come out. Joe said a little earlier that you guys haven't changed your stance on Daniel. Was it at all tempting to look at some of those possibilities, or how did you handle that situation?
Well, you do your evaluation. We've had Daniel for 2 years. We've done the evaluation on him, and we really believe he's the guy. So it's no reason to go look. I mean, everybody, what we're doing isn't fantasy football. We're not playing. We're not doing that. We've got a conviction on him. He's everything we want. He's got all the physical skills. And again, I say this all the time. The kid just finished his second year of NFL football. All right. How many of us, after 2 years at our new job, were great? No, we all start at
How many years does he need then?
Hopefully get, hopefully get to point Z. But the one common denominator is it takes time.
Okay,
Everybody
how much
doesn't
time?
understand that. We believe in Daniel, and that's where it is.
All right, cool.
Do you feel like there's a deadline to get this team to a championship caliber before he gets to a second contract? Like, do you need to try and build a winner on his rookie deal?
I mean, you're giving me the window theory, Tom. Is that what you're talking?
Window cleaning. Yeah.
I'm sorry.
Doing windows, yes.
You were doing Windows. I don't. Microsoft Windows is nice, but I'm not a window theory guy. I'm just not. I never have been. I never.
All right. So when are we going to start winning?
We're going to keep working the process, keep getting better, and we'll win when we'll get there.
Yeah.
Kim Jones, NFL Network.
I'm sorry.
Hey, Dave, it's Kim Jones.
Oh, hey, Kim. How are you?
Hi. Since you arrived back at the Giants, I think this is now year 4 of the rebuild. And while I'm sure you might quibble with this, PFF had your offensive line ranked 31st this season in the league. I'm just wondering where you think you guys are in this rebuild. And did you think it would be a little quicker, frankly?
Well, Kim,
they didn't do a full rebuild, man. They went for it.
About that.
They went for it.
I went to Carolina, and it worked out well. It worked out quickly, and we all want things to happen fast. Just for what it's worth, in terms of where our offensive line is, they're young and they're talented, and things take time. I said it earlier. Things take time. We believe in these guys. They all came along. We finished the season fairly strong. One of the things that I would say to you is, we're 4-2 in our division. And if you look at our division, all of those defensive lines that we play, all of those fronts are big, powerful, athletic defensive lines. Our guys held up. So we're getting there, Kim, and I just, it's the old saying, you gotta run the ball and you gotta obviously be able to protect the passer. And we're young and we're getting better.
Dave, if I may though, you can only say you're young if you don't have Zeitler and Solder, because they're not young. They are absolute veterans in this league. Right. So are you implying they're gone and the young guys have to make it happen now?
I'm not implying that.
Okay, Kim.
But Dave, then your offensive line isn't young. Respectfully, you don't have a young offensive lineman.
When your center
wow.
and your left guard and your left tackle are rookies, basically, you're young.
Pat Leonard, Daily News.
Hey, Dave.
That was spicy.
With the uncertainty and lack of information in the scouting process this year compared to others, is there an argument for trading back in the draft more this year than other years and acquiring more picks to take more swings at the plate, so to speak, or even maybe moving and acquiring more picks next year because the process might yield clearer results in the scouting process than it does this year? Or do you try to handle it as normally as possible through all those hurdles?
Well, Pat, I think that, you can make the argument that you're going to have the most information on the top 100, 150 guys. And as you work backwards, because of the lack of touch and whatever, you're not going to have as much information or have as much confidence in your ability to work your way through that group. All right. You can make the argument to trade back. All right, because of this thing, Patrick, there are going to be guys there are guys in this draft that when they put pads on in August, it'll be the first time in 20 months they'll have put pads on. Okay, so you got to think about that piece. And some of those are guys that are very, very highly rated. Okay, so you've got to, think about that. Is there your point about moving picks to, trading back and getting 2022 picks is very valid, because hopefully we'll be back into a somewhat, our normal, and we'll be able to draft in 2022 with that kind of thorough information that we had in 2021, but not 2020, but not in 2021. Get that. So you can make an argument for that, Pat. You can make that argument. Trade back, accumulate picks for next year. You can make the argument you sit tight, and you can make the argument if you have all the with knowing that most of that your best information is going to be on the top guys, maybe you trade up. So who knows? I think what you're saying makes a lot of sense.
Thanks.
Tom Canavan, AP.
Hey, Tom.
Hey, Dave. How you doing?
Good. And yourself, kid?
Good. Can I refer to you as an old GM?
Wow. That's getting personal. Sure. If that makes you happy, have at it.
Here's my quick question. This year with the reduced salary cap, do you have to is renegotiating with guys with existing contracts more of an option this year? Again, the problem you have, the goal to best manage the cap is to get flat contracts. Okay, so if a guy's making $15 million, has a 3-year deal at $45 million, you'd like to have a $15 million cap number every year. That's the goal. Once you start restructuring and renegotiating, you usually back end load them. All right, and now so you just what you're doing is you're kicking the can. So it depends upon how much pain you want to deal with. So that's really what it is. Some teams are, don't have any, they philosophically they just say the heck with it and they restructure, and some people don't. And it is it's a philosophical conversation, but it's not a good place to get to constantly restructure, renegotiate. Thank you.
Ryan Dunleavy, New York Post.
Hey, Dave. This is your first draft since having to let go of DeAndre Baker. Pre-Dave Gettleman, the Giants were burned by some immaturity issues with Eli Apple, with Eric Flowers. I'm wondering if this draft organizationally, you guys have tightened the standard to where any hint of a red flag is a no-go for you guys. or if that's just not possible because too many talented players have at least, some hint of a red flag.
Yeah, see, what I'm going to say to you, Ryan, is, again, you have to remember how young these players are. Okay, it's not the old days where you had 4 guys that played 4 years, where almost everybody redshirted. We're drafting, Andrew Thomas had just turned 21. I've told you before, I drafted 2 20-year-old guys when I was in Carolina. They're coming out younger and younger. So there is that piece to them, and they've been covered their whole lives, and they've had they've been taken care of, and they've been covered, and they haven't had to be as accountable as maybe they need to have been. So when they get to us, they have 2 things that are very dangerous, and it's time and money. And some handle it better than others, Ryan. So at the end of the day, that is something we really
oh my God, what's going on with these questions, man?
We talk about maturity all the time with players. And again, it's you turn around and you interview the players, and you ask them the question, what do you think is going to be your biggest challenge? And they turn around and say, well, I shouldn't have any problems. And I'm saying to myself, well, how much does he know? How aware is he? How self-aware is he? Does he really understand what he's getting into? When I tell him you're 21 years old and you're going to play against a 28, 29-year-old man who wants to rip your lungs out, it's different. You're not in college anymore. So, the long way around to that answer, Ryan, is the maturity piece is really important, and you work on it. And at the end of the day, sometimes you're not right.
Jordan Ronan, ESPN.
Hey, Dave. Hope you're feeling well. Just want to follow up on one thing Kim said and then get to my real question.
I'm sorry?
I said I want to follow up on one thing that Kim was getting at and then get to another question.
Sure.
But in regards to, you're talking about a young line. If that's the case, are you comfortable going into the season with 2 players, in their second year, like Matt Pert and Andrew Thomas as your starting tackles?
I am, yes.
Okay. You obviously saw enough from Pert. I mean, we didn't see a lot of them, right? So I'm curious, what is it you saw that gives you that confidence right now?
I'm sorry?
I said we didn't see a lot of Matt Pert, so I'm wondering what you saw that gives you that confidence that he's the starting caliber player right now.
Because when he played fine. He played pretty damn well, and at some point in time, you've got to let the young kids play. Listen, every player was a rookie at some point, or a young player at some point. At some point in time, you have to have confidence in who's on your club, and you have to put them in there and let them play. Again, like I've said to some of you before, how many of you had Pulitzer Prize winning articles your first or second year?
Zach Rosenblatt, NJ.com.
Dion, can I just ask another one real quick?
Make it quick, please.
Yeah. Dave, you don't have the proverbial, number 1 receiver or, dominant edge rusher that, the bell cow, I think, as you said last year. How realistic is it to fill both those spots in one offseason, considering how much those positions get paid?
Well, it's not, there is a draft, right? So you don't necessarily have to buy them both. And we're just going to see how it plays out, see what guys are worth and what the expense costs are. And we'll just keep moving forward.
Zach Rosenblatt, NJ.com.
Hey, Dave. You guys added Kyle Bryan to your front office the other day. I'm curious what went into that decision. What's his role going to be in the front office, and what do you think he can kind of bring to the table that you guys?
Well, what Kyle brings is a variety of experiences. He's worked in pro. He's been obviously a college scout, a director of college scouting, a vice president of player personnel. Kyle went to Harvard, and we're always looking to add smart people. So. He's a quality evaluator, and we had a chance to add him, and you want to add quality people. So Kyle will be very involved in what we're doing.
Chris Carlin, ESPN.
Dave, I just want to touch on something you were talking about earlier with less information that you guys can get this year, and everybody's in the same boat. but is there a little bit more uneasiness as a GM going into a draft like this when you don't necessarily have access to the people that are around these players, or you don't get to see these players in person, just where that level is? And if there is a number, like a percentage of less information that you would have on a prospect this year when evaluating him than you normally would?
It really, Chris, the whole lack of what makes you uncomfortable is the lack of personal contact you have with the players. You know, that's really what it is. Watching them operate, talking to them, just not having that personal touch is very difficult. The other thing that is strange is, you know, most of the time when you're talking about players in April, once all the smoke is cleared and you've had Indy, you've had your pro days, you have your own personal measurements on these guys. You've got the 40-yard dash times are your times. Okay, so there's going to be a lot of information that we're hoping is accurate. You know, and Chris, because of that, we're going to get into. We always talk about when we talk about players, we talk about play speed. I mean, I've been pretty vocal about Indy being the underwear Olympics, and last time I checked, when you play football, you have full pads on. So it's not what a guy runs on in a 40-yard dash time; it's how fast he plays. So I think that's going to come into
no, that 40 is important
even more. But it's not so much we can get with the assistant coaches and other folks. That's not the problem. The problem is the personal contact with the players and where are the measurables coming from, and in terms of, especially for me, more so it's the height and the weight and the body's measurements. The 40-yard dash is not. That's a watch, and I really believe in play speed. So that it is a little unsettling, Chris, because it's I've said this before. What we're doing is educated guessing. Okay, so this makes us a little more uneducated, not having this personal touch with these players.
With the doctors in particular, the medical stuff, not having your own doctors get a chance to look at them too, where that plays in?
Yeah, sure. Because, like I said, they're going to have some kind of, there is going to be an Indy in regards to medical. I believe they're talking about having the top 150 go to Indianapolis and have a full, thorough medical. There's going to be there's going to be some telehealth interviews involved and whatever. But sure, it's a little unsettling. It is, with the medical piece, because there's some unknowns. The more unknowns you have, the more unsettling it is.
We'll take three more. Matt, Patty, Daryl. Matt Lombardo, Fansided.
Hey, Dave, how's it going?
Good, Matt. How are you?
Good. I'm curious when it comes to Saquon Barkley's situation coming off the injury. Do you guys need to see him on the field before opening up long-term contract talks? And just curious what the injury history plays into that as he goes into his fourth year.
Well, I think that's part of the discussion, okay? And obviously we're going to have to make a decision this spring on whether we pick up his fifth-year option or not. But, certainly, it's again, we get back to that medical question. It's unknown, and what you have to do is get your trainer and your doctors involved and make your best decision.
Thanks.
Eddie Trainer, Giants Country.
Hey, Dave, how you doing?
Good. You, Pat?
Doing well, thanks. Dave, last year, I don't think you had any undrafted free agents. I take that back. I think Nico made the roster later in the season. But with that said, I mean, do you feel like, given the circumstances, that you're missing out on maybe some smaller school gems? And have you adjusted how you're going about your scouting process to maybe pick up some of these guys and pay more attention to them?
That's not a bad question.
The problem, you got to remember, Patty, last year we had 10 draft picks. Okay, so that's an unusual number. So you can make the argument that those 4 sevenths, you take 3 of the 7th round picks, the last 3, and if we had signed them after the draft, one of them was it was cheese and crackers. It was the inside linebacker from Georgia, Tay Crawford. And one of them was Chris Williamson, who was on the practice squad. So, and the other guy, I'm not sure of. It wasn't Cam Brown. Cam Brown was a sixth. But the point is, those guys made our club. Okay, so you can look at those as free agent signings after the draft. The other thing you have to remember is right now, some of those schools are playing, Patty. You know, some of the smaller school guys are playing, and, you know, we'll do the best we can with evaluating them. You know, there's film available. There's, you know, you're trying to run a draft, you're trying to get all the draft information and look at these kids. So it's a challenge. It's a challenge, but we're working at it.
Thank you.
Last question here, Daryl Slater, NJ.com.
Hey, Dave. I hope you're doing well.
Same here, Daryl.
Yeah. So big picture here. I guess I'll end on that. You guys have won 5, 4, and 6 games in your 3 seasons here. Yeah. What are your expectations about how much better this team should be this year, now that you feel like you have kind of settled things at quarterback, which is a big question? How much better should this team be in 2021?
Obviously,
here we go. Let's dodge this bullet.
Everybody has expectations, and it's about just it's about getting better. I'm not going to put a win number on it. I'm just not going to go there, Daryl. I think we're just about there. We've taught you guys have alluded to a couple of our needs, and I think that I believe we're going to get there.
Thanks, Mr. Gettleman. You're all set.
Thank you. Have a good day.
All right, that was Dave Gettleman, Giants general manager. And I can tell you one thing for sure. I am not watching a Dave Gettleman interview again until A, they sign free agents and he's talking about free agents, or B, they've drafted their draft picks and he's going over the draft picks. This guy is completely full of it. Listen, I loved what he did in the offseason last year. I think it was pretty freaking good. I'm not saying that he's a terrible GM, like most people are saying. I just think that he's just like, this dude is just saying a whole lot of nothing, man. This guy is terrible. He didn't give anything pretty much. At least like Judge told us kind of like what's going on in the background, how they changing their coaching staff and all this other things. But in terms of Dave Gettleman, man, he's just a huge disappointment. In the intro, it didn't come in with anything, man. He was just like, yo, listen, guys, we've reviewed our roster. All right, we're going to open up for questions now. I mean, come on, bro. Like, you barely talk. You don't say anything during the season. And now that you're on the spotlight, you got nothing for us. So this guy is man, this guy, he loves to play with people's intelligence. That's one of my problems with Dave Gettleman. Dude said combine doesn't matter. That's terrible. Come on, man. Like, dude, clearly, like, you had, like, the wide receivers that the team had last year, for the most part, all fit the same mold. I mean, you either had these, in my opinion, Shepard and Tate were the exact same wide receivers. Slayton was a deep threat down the field. But then we had guys that were like route runners. Dude, like, you need to diversify that wide receiver role. Talking about the offensive line is almost there. I'm not in complete disagreement that the offensive line is complete trash. It's not. But I don't know, man. This guy's making it seem like this team is almost ready to be winners when there's clearly a lot of problems with this team. Mainly depth. I think it's depth. I don't think it's necessarily bringing starters just like that, but it's depth. We need to be able to rotate guys left and right. But Dave Gettleman, man, he's a mess. I'm not watching him tomorrow. I'm just not. I'll listen to Judge again. I'll talk about Judge again. I'll go live if you guys want, but nah, man, I'm not feeling what Dave Gettleman was saying at all. It was completely useless. One thing that I want to talk about is, listen, one thing that Judge said that I really enjoyed is when he talked about a pass rush and what do we need for pass rush. He said, listen, it's not necessarily about the defensive ends. I can't stress it enough how people are so obsessed with pass rushers. If it all has to be cohesive. Right now, more important than defensive ends is getting that second cornerback in our team that's gonna hold it down somewhat. It doesn't have to be another Bradbury in the terms of Bradbury excellence that he provided last year, but we do need something that's gonna provide something of that depth. We need our safeties to play better. We have young safeties, and hopefully that does get better. Love, I'm not sold on Love at all. Xavier, we'll see him in year 2. Year 3 is the year, man. Dalvin, I feel like Dexter Lawrence is, nobody's talking about Dexter. And here's my problem. If Dalvin Tomlinson walks and we can't sign Dalvin Tomlinson for whatever reason, what's going on with Dexter? He was a first-round draft pick. And nobody's even talking about this guy. Like, come on now. We got to see a big improvement from that guy, especially. Well, regardless of the fact if Dalvin walks or not, we still need to see the first-round value on that guy. In my opinion, DG has failed in his first round, including Saquon. As much as I love Saquon and as much as you know, this guy is the man when he's on the field, it's just the impact in terms of wins hasn't been there. And hasn't been there with Jones, hasn't been there with Dexter Lawrence, hasn't been there with Baker. He has failed extremely bad on that first round. Other than that, all the other rounds he's done a lot better. So he that's kind of interesting that he does a lot better in the deep rounds, because that's the problem was with the previous GM, that he wasn't doing good in the deep rounds. So we have kind of like the reverse switch roles right now going on, where we're not hitting on the first round. And listen, the first round is where you change your franchise, though. Your first round players have to be the ones that change the franchise. Anything after that, yeah, you can find a gem. We haven't found gems, but we found good depth for the team, and we just need to improve off that. That's pretty much it for me, guys. We'll wrap it up here. Thank you for joining in. Thank you for viewing, and yeah, have yourself a good one. Let's go ahead and see